Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at the Global AI Chessboard in 2026. If you've been paying attention to this space, you know the game has totally changed. I mean, it's no longer just a race for raw computing power. It has evolved into a high-stakes contest for global infrastructure and pure geopolitical leverage.
So, who actually controls the future of intelligence? It's literally the multi-billion-dollar question. Behind the familiar consumer chatbots we use to draft our emails every day, there's an intense battleground. In this explainer, we're going to decode that battleground, looking specifically at the frontier AI models, the explosive startup scene, and the rapidly shifting global power landscape that dictates who controls the digital infrastructure of tomorrow.
Here is the agenda for today's Radar Scan. 1. The Frontier Titans. 2. The multimodal ecosystem. 3. The rise of sovereign AI. 4. The open source war. And finally, 5. AI on the battlefield.
Part 1. The Frontier Titans and the Consolidation of Power. Let's dive right in at the top of the hierarchy. When we look at the absolute frontier of AI, we are essentially looking at two radically different approaches to monopolizing power. On one hand, you have Google DeepMind. They're executing a strategy of total vertical integration. Because they exist within Alphabet, they control the hardware, the training data from billions of users, and the entire distribution pipeline. But then on the other hand, we have OpenAI. Now, OpenAI isn't vertically integrated in the same way, but they command staggering capital. We're talking about a massive $157 billion valuation and unprecedented external partnerships. A prime example of this is their involvement in the $500 billion Stargate infrastructure project, which is backed by major tech and government players.
But let's be real, DeepMind's moat is incredibly deep. Following their merger with Google Brain, they didn't just get smarter models. They gained access to Alphabet's dominant distribution network. Gemini is now natively integrated into Search, Gmail, and billions of Android devices worldwide. Plus, they have internal TPU compute cost advantages that competitors who have to pay market rates for hardware simply can't match. And we definitely can't forget AlphaFold. It successfully predicted the structures of essentially every known protein, basically solving a massive biological puzzle while the rest of the world was just trying to get AI to write a decent poem. It's a stronghold of data, compute, and distribution that's nearly impossible to replicate from scratch.
Which brings us to part 2, the multimodal ecosystem, focusing on disruption and efficiency. Because beneath these monolithic titans, a massive wave of agile startups is proving that unlimited resources aren't the only way to win this game. The new enterprise standard is actually a multimodal architecture. Companies are dynamically routing tasks to optimize both cost and intelligence. So, for example, you might use DeepSeek for high-volume data classification just because it's highly cost-effective, but then route your standard coding and daily tasks to Anthropic's Claude Sonnet as a balanced middle ground, and only reserve Claude Opus for the absolute most complex architectural problems. It's all about using exactly the right tool for the job. And this highly specialized, targeted approach, it's driving a rapid influx of venture capital into companies that are dominating highly specific workflows. Take Evolutionary Scale as an example. They just raised a massive $142 million to build AI models specifically designed to generate novel proteins for scientific research. They aren't trying to build a general chatbot. They are laser-focused on pushing the absolute boundaries of biological science. Similarly, look at Hebbia. They secured a $130 million raise at a $710 million valuation, and that is strictly for advanced enterprise document search AI. Across the entire startup ecosystem, from cybersecurity defenses by companies like 7AI, all the way to financial research automation, startups are raising staggering sums to completely automate complex knowledge work. They're succeeding by finding a highly specific niche and dominating it completely. All right, part 3, the rise of sovereign AI and Europe's champion. Now, this startup explosion isn't just an American phenomenon. It's actively feeling a really fierce push for digital sovereignty across the Atlantic. $13 billion. That was the total European AI investment boom in 2025 alone. The European tech ecosystem is surging right now, backed by absolutely unprecedented venture funding. And the explicit goal here is to capture digital value that has historically been totally monopolized by Silicon Valley. Europe is demanding AI that aligns with its own regulatory frameworks and local values. The shift in enterprise market share between 2023 and 2024 tells a really compelling story here. OpenAI sits at 34%, Anthropic at 24%, but Mistral and others, they've captured a massive 42%. Mistral AI, which is a French company recently valued at a staggering $14 billion, has actually seized significant market share right out from under the US giants. How they do it? By strictly prioritizing regional data compliance and European digital sovereignty. For European enterprises, local data control often outweighs raw model performance, and Mistral capitalized perfectly on that reality.
Moving into part 4, the open source war, where ideology meets control. The fierce competition between these global players ultimately bleeds into a highly consequential ideological war over exactly how AI should be built, governed, and distributed. On one side, we have the safety-first, tightly controlled approach. Anthropic really champions this with what they call constitutional AI. Instead of relying on thousands of human workers to manually label what's harmful or helpful, they encode a constitution, essentially a hard set of rules. During the training phase, the AI generates responses, critiques its own responses based on that exact constitution, and then revises them. It literally learns from this AI-generated feedback. It's a way to let models supervise themselves safely and mathematically without needing constant human intervention. And the results of that constitutional training are genuinely striking. The data clearly shows these models learning to become drastically less harmful entirely without losing their helpfulness. It's a huge deal, because it takes the abstract philosophical debate about AI safety and grounds it in verifiable mathematical performance metrics. But conversely, on the exact opposite side of the ideology spectrum, we have the open source movement, heavily championed by Meta. Just consider this stance from Mark Zuckerberg. He argues that a world of only closed models basically results in a small number of massive tech companies, plus our geopolitical adversaries, being the only ones with access to leading models. Meta's core argument is that releasing frontier models like Llama 3.1 to the open source community is the only effective way to prevent a closed corporate monopoly. They believe a decentralized open ecosystem is actually America's best defense to maintain a global advantage against foreign competitors. Which brings us to our final section, Part 5, AI on the battlefield and the geopolitical reality. Ultimately, these debates over open source access and constitutional safety crash headlong into the harsh reality of global military superpower competition. The sheer velocity of the military pivot in the AI sector over just the last 2 years is breathtaking. We've seen leading AI labs aggressively move toward high-stakes defense partnerships. Back in October 2024, tools were purchased for AFRICOM operations. By January 2025, that massive $500 billion Stargate infrastructure project was announced, in conjunction with the U.S. government. By July 2025, a $200 million Pentagon contract was distributed among top AI firms. And this all culminated in a major political standoff in February 2026.
What we're witnessing now is a direct public clash between strict AI safety frameworks and the real-world demands of national security. According to reports, the Trump administration dropped Anthropic's AI tech from certain agencies after a standoff specifically over the company's military ethics concerns and red lines. And in the wake of that, OpenAI stepped in, securing a new deal with the Pentagon that reportedly altered certain ethical safeguards and added surveillance protections. So we're seeing these labs actively being forced to choose between their strict ethical guardrails and incredibly lucrative, highly strategic military alliances. Which leaves us with this final thought. As digital power becomes fully autonomous, who actually commands the chessboard? From the monolithic, vertically integrated titans to the hyper-specialized startups, right up to the autonomous battlefields of tomorrow, the race for artificial intelligence is fundamentally reshaping the globe. The models are getting smarter, the capital involved is getting larger, and the geopolitical stakes? They have absolutely never been higher. As this intelligence scales, we have to ask ourselves, who will ultimately hold the reins of this technology? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes on the board.